Hello there, beautiful people. I'm going to give you another little show of this new version of FSD, version 12.5.4. And we're going to be leaving from a place here in Mississauga, Ontario. And we'll be driving to the airport. And we'll see if we can do it uninterrupted and without any interventions or takeovers whatsoever. And we're going to be listening to Dr. John Campbell for a portion of our trip. Okay? He's usually got some really great stuff, so I figured might as well have something going on while we are watching this thing do an amazing, amazing job. So without any further ado, let's do this. We're going to be taking off from right here in the parking spot.
Are lying to you. Mass-marketed hair care doesn't work for everyone. Enter Pros, truly custom hair care, made with the best ingredients, chosen
okay, that's better.
For your hair, your lifestyle, and even where you live. Because we believe that great hair...
Well, a warm welcome to this talk. It's nearly Tuesday, the 8th of October. Now, I want to bring you an article now that brings a lot of sense to the chaos that we've seen over the past few years, and really does make sense of quite a lot of what we've come across in regards to the COVID vaccines. It explains quite a few things, really. I know it's time to move on from this, but these vaccines are still being
I didn't know this was the chat that he was going to have.
Still getting notifications to go for vaccination. And of course, there's an awful lot of consequences from the vaccines that have been given, and as well as that, there's plans for new mRNA vaccines. So this is really still quite relevant. Now, was this research published in the United States? No. Was it published in the United Kingdom? No. Canada, New Zealand, Australia? No. It was published in Poland. So this is from the Polish Annals of Medicine. Strange we can't manage to publish any of these.
It's 100%
articles in
FSD.
Sophisticated modern Western countries, but good on our Polish cousins for the publication. Now, this is the publication itself here.
No steering, no acceleration, no braking.
COVID vaccines in the scientific literature. Now, this is written basically by an academic who's an economist who works in a health department, so it really is quite revealing. And let me give you the essence of what it's about first of all, and you can decide if you want to watch. So, changing views. It's talking about the evolution of views towards the COVID vaccines.
Well, let me just capsulize, and I'm going to change the video. Basically, they're talking about the fact that, of course, everybody's starting to learn that the truth about that garbage is all leaking out now. Been leaking out for years, but...
Great to see you, Randy. Nice to be seen. And what we're doing today is...
So this is a more lighthearted video, and I use this like a podcast.
Early Saturday morning, or sometimes Saturday, it finally got out, and this is the first chance that we've had to do this.
Okay.
And yes, there's a few pieces of financial news today, like the stock being down, the market being down. We will weave that into the discussion that Kathy has with regard to the market. Larry, I was very impressed, though, by this first guest that she had, well, guests from her staff, where they talked about the AI future and about the four main companies that are that have the foundation part of the AI opportunity out there. And, and naming XAI as being one of those four foundational companies. What did you think?
So you have a Kubernetes app, and you're planning to tackle distributing your commercial software into customer control.
Companies. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I follow ARC very closely, so there are, you know, a spectacular set of intellects. That staff is unparalleled in terms of, you know, just this group of intellects. And
now I don't think there's going to be any problem with copyright laws with these videos, because first of all, you're not watching them, you're only listening to the sound, and I'm going to interrupt it and break from time to time just so that it becomes like segments. So hopefully that will be fine. As you can see so far, everything is A-OK. FSD is just, it's a rock star now, okay? Like, it causes people to get speechless. People I give rides to, and as you'll see right here, I'm going to turn on this light so that you know what I'm talking about. When I'm not doing movies or working on film set, I do some Uber and Lyft driving, and everyone that finds out that this car is driving itself are shocked. So what I tell them is, welcome to the world of Tesla robo-taxis. And they go, what do you mean? And I go, I did not have to touch the controls, not even once. Like right now, unfortunately, because it doesn't see my eyes very well in the dark, in the dim lighting, it makes me have to touch the wheel from time to time. But as soon as it becomes active monitoring again, I don't have to touch anything at all. But anyway, so we've hit the highway. Let's see how she does. I will not be doing anything but little tweaks to the wheel whenever is necessary.
I really follow them very closely, and I'm sharing my screen now. I don't know if you can see this. Yes. Yeah. So this is Kathy, and you know, this is a conversation she has now every time she does in the know. She has one of her researchers, one of the people in the research team. This is Brett. He heads up their team, their research teams. I think he's called the chief futurist. Okay, and he is, you know, just one of the brilliant minds. He's probably the most brilliant. I mean, I can't measure them. I'm a dwarf looking up to giants here, so I can't really tell who's what. But he is brilliant in terms of his analysis and in terms of his insights. And so I really hang on his every word. Not that I always agree with him. Right. I've had my disagreements with him, and we've debated at length. But he is amazing. So Kathy had him on this particular conversation, and it was a conversation about AI and the impact of it.
That was wonderful. This is one of the first times that totally on its own FSD has now moved us into the HOV lane, even though we weren't being held up by any traffic ahead of us. So maybe they're getting my messages on a regular where I'm saying, folks, the HOV lane is a traveling lane for EVs, high occupancy vehicles, and motorcycles. No reason to slow right down in the HOV lane in order to get out of it every time it opens up with dotted lines. And it's kind of an abrupt maneuver it was doing. Like seriously, on the highway, slowing down drastically to change lanes to get out of the HOV to interfere with the fast lane, the passing lane. So I'm glad to see that it's starting to recognize that there's a reason for coming into the HOV, and hopefully it will stop trying to kick me out of it abruptly and dangerously. Well, I can't say really dangerously because it's making sure that there's no accident going to occur, but it feels very, very uncomfortable. Not something that people are going to enjoy. Back to our show.
AI on IT, but in the broader sense, on all of our lives. And so I thought it would be worthwhile, instead of jumping into the economics, just spending a few minutes on that. And I don't know if you agree with that.
Yes, I agree with that. And I was also thinking, Larry, that this is, again, lay people sometimes, including me, feel a little bit out of our depth on this, but let me see if I understand the layers of this business. So I would call the bottom layer the pick and shovel layer. This would be the NVIDIA layer. People making the hardware, the basic software that underpins the entire industry. Without the picks and shovels, you got nothing. Is that be okay? Then there's, I think,
active monitoring is now available again, probably because of the streetlights. But regardless, that just means I will never have to touch the wheel again until it starts to flash at me saying active monitoring is unavailable.
I understand, right? The foundation level. This would be the people that have NVIDIA chips or the Dojo chips or whatever kind of chips they have. They've got the Cerberus. They have service. They have the
Cerberus.
Yeah, and they are doing the compute as well as the storage of these AI kinds of activities.
You need to separate two layers there. There are people who buy the NVIDIA chips and the Dojo chips and all the associated hardware and put them into these gigantic data centers.
Right.
So they will provide the compute power,
right, for training.
For training and for inference, not only for training but for also operational.
Okay.
Soft intervention there.
And it's good that you raised the issue.
Soft intervention there, only for comfort, because being in that left or the second rightmost lane is probably just going to cause me to have to merge very quickly up ahead. So I put on the signal to have it turn over to this lane, just in the hopes of avoiding that merge. I could be wrong. It might go straight and smooth without a problem, but I just have a funny feeling it's going to be a merge lane. And not that FSD can't handle that. It can merge and unmerge anytime it likes. It just sometimes it has to slow down for other cars, which is kind of a nuisance. So I like the nice, smooth, steady speed ride. And it looks like I was wrong. We probably could have just left it and it would have kept going straight along this merge. And look at that. Monitoring is not available again. So I just had to give the wheel a little twist. Back to our show, folks.
Training, because the way AI works currently, it's not going to be always like this, but you do a lot of training of the model, and your model is the sort of the stuff that operates when you ask it a question, or when you pose it a problem, or you ask it to write code, or you ask it to be an agent and give you some information that you need at a particular time you need it. All of that training, and that training is done right now by the people who write who build the code to do the training part of it, and that training is building what we call these large language models, which is the classic model that's being used right now. It was essayed by GPT, by OpenAI. Couldn't remember the AI part of it. Believe that. OpenAI. But it wasn't invented by OpenAI. OpenAI just used it. It was invented actually by a scientist at Google, ironically enough. But it built upon many inventions going back to the 70s. Many inventions. It built upon a lot of theoretical work.
Active monitoring is back on again.
Particular insight that this Google scientist discovered that was then applied by OpenAI, and it became what we call a large language model.
That yes to credit.
And yes, that lane change was totally done by FSD and not by me, just as this one is. Look at how great it is when it's on active monitoring. It just starts to drive like it has so much confidence. I like this lane choice for this turn because it keeps us either the middle or the right lane, which would be perfect for where we're going. We're almost there, folks. Have patience, and therefore you'll be able to see that this is like a 100% critical disengagement free drive. That one soft intervention was my choice. It wasn't necessary. There was no incident or discomfort that was pending. I take full blame for interfering with a perfect drive.
From Capital One gave me a sense of security.
Oh, get out of here, commercials.
Large language model. And today, the companies that build these large, what we call foundation models.
Just so you know, I don't listen to these things at this rate.
Quite a few of them that have popped
This
up,
is how I actually listen.
The big guys in that world are OpenAI themselves. Then there is, Meta, and they have open source their code. And then there's also Google itself. And then there's Perplexity and several others, including XAI.
Right.
But there's a handful of them. I don't know that there's a lot more than 10 serious players, or maybe 20 if you include some of the guys who are doing the very, very sort of focused stuff. But these large language models, by definition, are extraordinarily big. And to actually train them, to actually have them read all the data, which is functionally all the data on the web and wherever they can find it, takes enormous amounts of money. So you have this OpenAI building this large language model, and you have all the other competitors.
And then Larry, before we move on, in terms of foundation, it can also be that Tesla has a separate foundation model that goes off of video instead of large language models, but basically at the same level. It's bringing in the data, training off of the data, and creating eventually agents or the activity.
So the activity is called inference. So when you finish training a model, whether it happens to be on words, on speech or sounds, on video, and we're discovering that you can train these models on a very broad range of inputs, much like the human being can take, verbal, visual, and even perhaps physical prompting or physical feel. But we're learning that you can train these models on all of these inputs, and then they were capable of outputting, a response to a question or to a prompt. And that's called inference. And that's really what these gigantic data centers, who've also provided the power, using these chips we've talked about, they provide the compute power for the inference. That is to say, the operation of the models once they're built. So when you ask a question, the inference operates and gives you an answer. In Tesla's case, the inference computer lives in the car. And that kind of defines the maximum capacity that little engine has got, because the engine can't expand beyond that car. Whereas in the giant data centers, they can string these inference computers together to be
1.5 speed is the best for me. Now, just warning you, up ahead here, I may have to take over for half a second because there is a huge dip for a water grate or whatever that's in the middle of the road, and when we cross over from a stop sign, it's right there. So if I have to take over there for half a second, it's not critical, and again, it's just for my comfort, because I don't want to replace any control arms or stuff like that.
be a lot more powerful in terms of their inference at the time they work.
Okay.
The key to what we're being taught by Brett is that
I'll let it go.
These large language models are going to change everything about computers.
That wasn't so bad.
We're not going to be writing programs and then running programs the way we used to. We're going to be operating with agents. Agents are, the functional representation of the model, which is doing more than just answering a question, but building the capability to respond and to know what to do with the response and what actions to take as a result of the questions you ask them, or perhaps even the recommendations that you need from it, and to build off that, and to do that agentically. In other words, with a mind of its own. Yeah. So that's kind of the next stage that we're reaching. And by the way, by the time we reach that stage, the idea of inference and training is going to merge. And what I mean by that is that these agents are going to be producing data by themselves, which in turn they're going to feed back into the model, and the model in turn is going to be updated, which in turn is going to improve the agentic capability of the tool.
Right.
Okay. So the limited use we're putting these models to, that is, I ask a question, I get an answer, is going to change completely. In the new world, these models are going to build the code without needing to have access to a coding machine or to a language or to a computer. They're just going to be operating completely independently, and they're going to go and find the resources from a compute perspective, from a language perspective, and from a functional perspective that they need to respond to what your needs are. Think about, the humanoid robot in the future. It's going to have those agentic properties, but not only that, but a whole lot of agentic capabilities. So it's going to have to go out and do research for you unprompted, and it's going to be able to find, as it does the research, new resources, new ways to go, new ideas to feed back in, and so on. And so we're going to see a huge change. And
so what did you think, folks? Leave your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. This, to me, is amazing, fantastic. I didn't have to take over at all. It would have been a robotaxi 100% all the way here. So I think 1010 is going to be an incredible event. Keep paying attention. Lots coming your way. Bye for now. Love y'all.